Whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor. The problem is that those who pursue these virtues often become weary because the work is hard and the waiting is long. And that you would have hope is my prayer today, in knowing that the Almighty is watching, and that through you, you would be available to the light of God to shine, for where there is light, darkness cannot prevail. Let us pray. Almighty God, ruler and creator of everything in heaven and under heaven, we come seeking, asking, and invoking your presence among us. We do so not only for those in this room, but for the sake of this nation, and indeed for the sake of the world. Scripture tells us that the government is upon your shoulders, and all authority belongs to you. So we come in gratitude for allowing us the privilege of partnering with you so that your people can be blessed. We seek your wisdom, your patience, your compassion, and your love in order that those who lead will steward well the responsibility that is on loan to them. We ask for strength. Our courage and our confidence come from knowing that you are strong and that you have healed this nation before. Compel us to do our parts that we might experience healing again. Give us hearts for those matters that are close to your heart. For your people are in need of justice. Your people are in need of housing. Your people are in need of health care. Your people are in need of education. Your people are in need of fairness, and this nation is in need of leadership that will settle for nothing less. So raise up righteous, courageous, faithful, and faith-filled leaders so that your people will know that you have not forgotten us. Through the ages, you have been light. Cast your light again. Bless the poor. Bless the sick. Bless those who are marginalized and afraid. Bring peace to those who have lost loved ones, even this week. You have brought us through weary years and silent tears before. We take heart in the knowing that you can and will do it again. Because you are light, allow that light, Almighty, to shine on us, in us, and through us. Thank you for giving us perseverance and for the promise that righteousness shall prevail. Our faith and your record tells us that in unity we will accomplish great things. Let it be so. And those who agreed said, amen. Amen. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good morning, friends. I want to thank the Reverend again for his words this morning. I will now invite our DNC Secretary, Jason Ray, on stage to determine a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. As of 10:23 a.m., when we last checked the registration count, we had 354 DNC members checked in to participate today. So, sir, that does indeed constitute more than 50% of members, so we do have a quorum present today.
Thank you, Secretary Ray. A quorum has been established. Now, before we move to the chair vote, we are joined by Congressman Glenn Ivey, representing Maryland's 4th Congressional District. Yes. Congressman Ivey has served as an assistant U.S. attorney and was twice elected state's attorney for Prince George's County. So he's just the type of leader we need fighting the Trump administration alongside us. Please offer Congressman Ivey our warmest DNC welcome. Good morning, Democrats. Good morning, Democrats. Are you ready this morning? All right. I want to welcome you to Maryland, to Prince George's County. This is my congressional district. There we go. Maryland's in the house, right?
All right. It's great to have you here, choosing new leadership. I know this is going to be an incredible day, choosing a new direction. I got to say, too, you got here just in time, because it's crazy on Capitol Hill right now. We need you. We need the reinforcements. We need the fight. We need the wise leadership you're about to choose. God bless you for what you're going to do. And let me say this, too. I know there's some challenges right now, to say the least. These are difficult times. I was expecting to come down here and have to give you all a pep talk, but I love the energy in the room. I love the excitement in the room. I love the fight in the room. We're going to make a difference. So with this competition today, remember that iron sharpens iron. By competing, we make each other stronger. We need to be as strong as we've ever been for the fight that we've got coming up. Isn't that right? Yeah. All right, all right. One last thing I want to say, which is thank you. Today is going to be Jamie's last day as DNC chair, and I think he's done an outstanding job, and I think we should please rise up. Let's give him the thanks that he deserves for the great job that he's done. Thank you to Jamie. Thank you to you. Keep up the good work on the victory. Have a great day. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you.
You guys have heard me say this again. If a black man could blush. Thank you all so much for everything that you have done and all of your support. Now, this morning I have a few housekeeping things before we get started. The first thing is Dems Care. You all know that Democrats Care or Dems Care has been something that has been near and dear to my heart. Dems Care provides an opportunity for our party to embrace and act on our ideals and work to improve our country beyond the ballot, beginning by supporting local communities and helping people when they need the help. The Democratic Party hey, folks, I said this yesterday, and I'm going to reiterate this for folks who are not, who weren't here yesterday. This is a room of respect. This is a room of decorum. We have DNC members here, but we also have invited guests. And in the South, when you come and you are invited to somebody's house, you treat their house better than you treat your own. And so today, we are going to go through the process of electing our next leadership in this party. And there will be conversations, but we will respect each other. We will respect each other. And there will be zero tolerance, none for disrespect. And before I even get to Dems Care, this is another message that I wanted. For the last few weeks, and I've heard more over the course of the last few days while we were here, that people have been threatened about their vote. They have been intimidated by their vote. That folks have been having donors call and say that we're going to pull funding because of their vote. Folks, in this party, there will be no tolerance for that type of behavior. My friends, the other side is about fear, fraud, and fascism, but we don't do that in the Democratic Party. And I know in the passions of campaigns, people get a little heated sometimes and they do certain things, and maybe the candidates themselves may not even know about it. But let me just say this and establish this. We must be united because too much is at stake right now in this country. So if you have done it, if you have been guilty of saying certain things, it stops right now. Okay? So I want to establish that as a floor for today's discussion. We all got to be united, and we have to move forward. And I appreciate each and every one of you, and I know what's in your hearts. So for our guests, welcome to the DNC. Welcome to the Democratic Party. And we expect you to have the respect that we will extend to you as guests in our house today. Second thing, I talked about Dems Care. On your tables right now in front of you, you will see a card asking to support Los Angeles firefighters and their families. If everyone could take out their phones, open your photo app, and hover over the QR code, and when you tap on the link, it will take you to the Los Angeles Firemen's Relief Association. The association serves LA City firefighters and their families to help with financial, emotional, and other much-needed support. Your donation today will go directly to the firefighter families facing devastating losses during January's wildlife fires. So if you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. The last thing I would like to do before I move into the explanation of voting processes. Our staff at the DNC. My friends, I want to say with everything in my heart, thank you to the team at the DNC. These young folks know this election process has been hard for them. You know, sometimes people constantly say things about the staff or the DNC that you currently aren't doing or you didn't do well enough, but I want to thank them because I know they poured their hearts and their souls into the work that we did over the course of these 4 years. We have research books on every single person who may run for president in 2028 on the GOP side. We've never had that before. We've had more investment in our state parties than we've ever had before. We've never had that before. And it's because record fundraising, never had that before. Grassroots and major donors. And I just want to thank all of our staff at the DNC for pouring everything that they had into it. When I onboarded, and I think I onboarded every staff member of the DNC, I told them that we were a family. And in a family, we always will have your backs. And so from the very first day that they joined this family to this moment right now, I am pledging to all of our DNC staff that I will always have your back. Thank you for serving this party. Thank you for giving it your all over these 4 years. So with that, I'd like to introduce another person guiding all of us, and especially me through this meeting, DNC's parliamentarian, Helen McFadden. Now, most of you know Helen. She has been with us for a while and has provided invaluable assistance to me and the staff. And Helen, again, thank you for all that you do for the party, especially today. So it is in order for us to move to election of officers. For each office, we will hear nominating and seconding speeches for all of the candidates. Following the conclusion of the speeches, I will ask DNC staff to distribute paper ballots. At that time, all members should raise their hand to receive a ballot, and proxy holders should raise both hands in order to receive a proxy ballot. Once the ballots have been sufficiently distributed, I will announce the opening of a 2-minute voting window. You will have 2 minutes to complete your ballot and return it to the floor staff. When you get your ballot, there are only 4 steps that you need to follow. Step 1, write your name clearly and legibly. Please also include your state. Step 2, apply your personalized sticker. If you haven't gotten yours yet, go get them from the registration desk before the vote. The more people who use their stickers, the quicker we can get these results tallied. If you lose your stickers, your ballot will still be counted with just your written name, but it must be legible, so no chicken scratch. Step 3, vote. Be sure to write your candidate's first and last name clearly so that there are no questions about who you voted for. Step 4, sign your ballot. Sign your ballot.
sign your ballot. A ballot must be signed in order to be counted, so that it is important to sign your ballot. We cannot count votes that are illegible or not signed, so follow the 4 simple steps. Write legibly, and we'll have a straightforward and quick counting process. If you need to leave and wish to submit a proxy, please go to the proxy desk with the person who will hold your proxy. We need to update the proxy list so that your proxy holder receives a proxy ballot and for the count room process. No additional proxies or transfers of proxies will be accepted by the secretary while a vote is being conducted. Finally, as you know, we are required to use the vice chair positions to gender balance our leadership team. I will explain more when we get to that point, but please keep in mind that the vice chair positions will have gender requirements. Are you seeking recognition? Is that? Please state your, do we have a microphone? Staff, do we have a microphone? Okay, we're going to get a mic. Why don't you come up here for a second? Time is precious. Oh, we got one right here.
Okay. Hello.
Good morning.
Right. Good morning,
Please
Mr. Chairman.
state your name and your state.
Mary Elizabeth Dorsey from Missouri. I move to amend the motion that was adopted yesterday, approving the rules for this election, to modify the time for candidate speeches to 1 minute for each candidate for each office.
Jack Dilworth, Kentucky. We second that.
Not a motion to reconsider. That is a motion to amend something previously adopted.
Yes.
It's going to take 2/3. And she wants to bring everybody down to 1 minute.
Okay. So why don't you, I'm going to turn to our illustrious parliamentarian to explain the process here. And then I want to also provide a comment as we consider. Come on.
What I just said to the chair is the motion as made by the member, Ms. Dorsey, and seconded, is a motion to amend something previously adopted. You adopted the proposed rules yesterday as they had been presented from the Rules and Bylaws Committee. A motion to amend something previously adopted will take 2/3 in the affirmative. The motion that the member made is to reduce all speeches for all candidates to 1 minute.
And we appreciate the member's motion. I just want to give some context. Folks, I want you to understand that these candidates have been preparing for this moment for a while now. They've drafted speeches, and I understand that you all may want to leave out of here earlier, but it does become inherently unfair for these candidates who've been preparing for this moment, because the Rules and Bylaws Committee considered this a few weeks ago. And so as we vote, I just want you all to have that context that a lot of these folks have been working a long time to get to this moment. And now we're about to change this procedure at the very last minute. I understand the convenience for all of us, but we should also think about the fairness as it relates to the candidates who put their hearts and souls into running these last few weeks. So with that, Madam Parliamentarian, what's the next procedure?
It's debatable.
So now this motion is debatable. How much time will we give for debate?
You want to say 5 minutes?
We'll give 5 minutes on each side. Or 1 minute on each side, since we want 1 minute. We'll do 1 minute on each side. Excuse me, ma'am. 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 Security, please. Ma'am, listen, ma'am. We appreciate your stance. But right now, Donald Trump controls the White House, the Republicans control Congress, and I would invite you to go down the street. In all due respect, Ms. Dorsey, who is the author of the amendment, you are entitled to speak, and we will have 1 minute, and then we can have somebody for 1 minute in the opposition. Turn the mic on, folks.
Just about trying to leave early. I think it's just a pragmatic approach. I know myself. I have read every email, every text message, returned as many phone calls as I could over this process. We've had the benefit of a 7-hour forum on Thursday. We have had the benefit of hearing from each of the candidates during each of the caucuses and councils so far this week. This, for me, is the fact that I think it's likely that we know that we're going to have multiple ballots for individual offices. And I think it's no disrespect to any candidate, any preparation. I think it's just a pragmatic approach, because by going to 1 minute for each of these speeches, the original time frame, just so you all know, was 4 hours. That's 4 hours of speeches based upon the rules as they were presented, and that's before a single vote is cast or a single ballot counted, okay? So.
Thank you. Do we have anyone wanting to speak in opposition to the amendment? Yes. Please state your name and your state.
Thank you. Okay.
And you have 1 minute.
Samantha Hope Herring, the great state of Florida. I would ask for the consideration for those who adopted the rules yesterday to stay in place, as most folks here prepared speeches to accommodate that, which is fair and just, so it's timely. In addition to that, Florida's delegation, we were just elected less than a week ago, and many of our members really would appreciate to have a full view of all candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. Given that time for debate has expired, we will now, Madam Parliamentarian, move to a vote.
2/3 in the affirmative.
We need 2/3 in the affirmative in order to make this amendment. So all, do you want to do a voice or standing? Standing vote. If you're able, and if you're not, please raise your hand. All those in favor of this amendment, please stand. Clearly, it's not 2/3, therefore this motion fails. At this time, we will now move to the election of the DNC chair. The following candidates listed in a randomly selected order have qualified to appear on the ballot. Martin O'Malley, Ben Wikler, Ken Martin, Marianne Williamson, Jason Paul, Dr. Quintessa Hathaway, Nate Snider, and Fez Shakir. Each chair candidate is entitled to 10 minutes for nominating and seconding speeches, which may be divided among no more than 4 people. Based on that randomly drawn speaking order, we will begin with former Governor Martin O'Malley. I ask that Governor O'Malley and his speakers join us. The 10-minute window will begin once your first speaker begins.
Good morning. I'm Wendy Davis from Georgia, and I rise to nominate a city councilman, mayor, governor, presidential candidate, and respected, dedicated party leader, Martin O'Malley. Martin's experience, battle-tested leadership, and proven ability to win tough elections, govern effectively, and turn around sinking ships is exactly why he should be our party's next chair. My friends, these are not ordinary times, and our neighbors across America cannot afford for us to just tweak around the edges. We need a leader willing to take decisive action and bring significant, not incremental change to our party. Heck, Martin O'Malley wrote the book on getting results. Y'all, that chapter on collaborative leadership, it woke me up. Did you read the chapter he sent you or his 100-day plan? He isn't giving us bullet points and promises of perks. Like every successful mayor, he's going to get shit done. And he's going to tap the skills, talents, and connections of this very room. We won't be bystanders and props or ATMs. We'll be true partners in this work. Real action, transformative change. I know that that's what I want. Join me in voting for Martin O'Malley.
I am Yvette Lewis, the former chair of the Maryland Democratic Party. And I rise to nominate my good friend Martin O'Malley. I was his state party chair, and let me tell you, he already won state parties. His commitment to the Maryland Democratic Party was not lip service. He was there every single day. He was a partner. He will be your partner for the state parties. The DNC needs a CEO, someone who can reimagine our party and turn our party around. That is in this man's DNA, because that is what he's done every step of the way. The DNC chair must be media savvy. People, Meet the Press will call tomorrow. We do not have time for someone to go on television and not be prepared. We will not get a second chance to make a first impression. This is the person we want to be sure that we send. Democrats, there's been a lot of talk about fixing the mechanics of the party. We don't need a mechanic, we need a driver, someone who can propel us forward. It's time to stop playing inside baseball while giving no consideration to the outside world. We did that last summer. We were focused on process, the other side was focused on progress, and that's why they got ahead and we didn't. We need a real leader. It's time for us, once and for all, to get out of the inside box and work outside and bring in a new leader, bold and ready to take us to the next level. Please vote for my friend, Governor Martin O'Malley.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Fudge, and I've been a lifelong Democrat. Let me assure you, we are in trouble. Our country is in danger, and we are at a tipping point. I've held elective office for 30 years, and I can promise you I know something about winning. We need a leader today who can transform this party into one where we are best positioned to compete and to win. That is my friend, Martin O'Malley. He is unmatched in his record of fighting and winning. He is ready to lead this party, to take on Trump and Republicans who we know are agents of chaos. He is a leader. If you truly want change, which you say you do, then step out of your comfort zone and vote Governor O'Malley for chair, or we will just be moving the chairs on the deck of the Titanic.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. To the men and women of the Democratic National Committee, to Jamie Harrison, our chair, to my loyal and true friends who have been with me in many a noble and courageous battle, including mayors from across America like Wellington Webb, Manny Diaz, Doug Palmer, and also Tim Kaine, Steve Grossman, and David Wilhelm. Our nation is in a moment of profound crisis, a crisis very unlike any we have ever seen before. Violent white supremacists pardoned and normalized. Rule of law and the Constitution kicked to the curb. People being rounded up like animals. Military professionals, career people, generals, gripped with fear inside of the walls of our own Pentagon. And the person responsible for all of these offenses against the Republic sits again in the White House and spits on patriot graves. This is a colossal failing of democracy, a colossal failure for our party. The stakes could not be higher. These are not ordinary times. This is not a normal DNC election. This is a time that cries out for new leadership and for change. America needs our party to stand up and fight for the people we love and the republic we carry in our hearts. So, the question for us as Democrats is this: do we have the courage to change our party so we can save our country? I believe we do, and that is why I run. But the change that we need to win is not going to be achieved by tinkering around the edges, nor will it be achieved by turning the Democratic Party over to a handful of billionaires who pull strings from behind curtains and try to walk our elected officials on short leashes like dogs. What our party needs right now, what our country needs right now, is a man who cannot be bought, a man who cannot be bossed. So yes, we must reimagine the entire proposition of the Democratic National Party. Yes, we must change to win. We must change to reclaim the brand and the purpose of this party, which is to fight for the economic security of every man, woman, and child in America. Yes, we must change to combat the misinformation and disinformation from plutocrats at home and foreign actors abroad, and set up an information war room of our own to combat their lies with our truth. We must, yes, change to restore trust in our party again and recruit a whole new generation of young Democrats to help us in this urgent mission to register more people to vote as Democrats, to file candidates all across the ballot in every state across the United States. But the most important change of all is this: to return to our true selves, to be the party that fights for the hardest working people and those just struggling to survive and clinging to human dignity. But now I speak being full of vision. And I tell you that I see this party of Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman. This party I see shall rise again. This party of King and Kennedy shall rise again. This party of Jimmy Carter, Shirley Chisholm, and John Lewis will rise again. This party of Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris will rise again. And we will take this fight for the people of the United States to them, and we will win, so that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the map.
Thank you, Governor O'Malley. That concludes the nominating and seconding speeches for Governor Martin O'Malley. We will now move to nominating statements for Ben Wikler. I ask that the Ben Wikler and his speakers join us. The 10-minute window will begin once your first speaker begins.
Hello, Democratic family. I am LaVar Barnes, chair of the mighty Michigan Democratic Party and vice chair of the ASDC. In both of these roles, I've seen again and again how unfailingly supportive Ben is of his fellow chairs, and that's why I'm supporting him. He has fundraised with me to raise money for the Michigan Democrats, and I know he's provided organizing and fundraising models to many others. He's also raised this money the right way. He doesn't use gimmicky tactics. He builds programs that work, working with diverse vendors rather than the same old consultant class. He took Wisconsin from a state that was under total Republican control, and in just 4 years, ended gerrymandering, struck down an abortion ban, flipped 14 legislative seats, and sent Tammy Baldwin back to Congress. These results have earned him the trust of donors large and small. In the 5 years before Ben was elected Wisconsin Dems chair, the party raised $40 million. In the 5 years since he became chair, they raised $230 million. Ben is ready for this job on day one. He can raise the funds we need to put them to work where they'll be most effective, in the states. Let's get behind Ben, a battle-tested leader, and let's do what we know is correct and right for our party. Vote for Ben.
Thank you, Chair Barnes. I'm Luis Heredia from Battleground, Arizona, and an interim chair of the DNC Hispanic Caucus. I support Ben Wikler because he listened to my story. My parents immigrated to Arizona-Mexico border to work in the lettuce field. They worked jobs that crushed their backs and their soul. They showed up every single day so they could buy food and a roof and pay for my grandparents, my brother, and my sister. They did this from sunrise to sunset. Right now, millions of hardworking first-generation Americans are showing up at work with fear that they might not return at sunset. You know who is not showing up for them right now? The Democratic Party. We have lost our ganas to fight for workers like my family. Our party needs a battle-tested fighter and an organizer like Ben to jumpstart a political movement against the status quo and for the people. That's why Ben is supported by labor unions like AFSCME, FT, NAA, SEIU, bricklayers, the carpenters, and Unite Here. They have all supported the fighter and the organizer. Ben built a year-long coalition in Wisconsin that developed genuine, authentic, long-term relationships with first-generation Americans. He brought ads, put surrogates in every single year on Spanish TV, radio, and newspaper. He did the same in Native radio. He did the same in Hmong TV, and he did the same with Black radio and newspaper. We need a party chair who will show up for workers to win elections up and down the ballot. Es un orgullo. It is an honor to nominate Ben Wikler.
DNC, my name is Anderson Clayton, and I have the honor of serving as the youngest state party chair in this country. And let me tell you something, as young people right now in this party, we need someone who wants to support us, finance us, and give us the resources that we need to do these jobs effectively. And Ben Wikler has done that. When North Carolina, a young person from that state, came up as an insurgent candidate that no one thought should win that state party election, Ben Wikler validated me in spaces that he did not have to. He pushed funding to a state that he did not have to. And he spoke up for someone that people now look at and say, man, look at what happened in the great state of North Carolina in November. You don't get that from not having people in this party that understand that money does matter when it comes to hiring organizers on the ground year-round. It's one of the reasons why North Carolina right now still maintains our organizers on the ground. Year-round organizing is a necessity for our party right now. And if you all don't believe in someone that can build the bench, that can finance our operation effectively, and that can do the job that I have seen him do over the last 2 years, quietly, behind the scenes, not asking for that attention, but giving it to the people that need it the most. So if you all are fighting and you want to see a fighter for a better future in this party, and the young people out there in this DNC that make it up right now, if you all want someone to fight for you, you're on Ben Wikler's team in this election, everybody. It is my honor to introduce the man of the hour, Chair Ben Wikler, folks.
I'm Ben Wikler. I'm running in this room on this day for the chair of the Democratic National Committee for one reason. The only measure of our work is the impact it has on people's lives. I'm running because the core value of our party, the soul of our party, is the fight for working people. The belief that no matter what you look like, no matter where your parents came from, the language you speak at home, or where you live now, this country should work for you. This country should not be rigged against you by people who already have everything. And now we face this moment of Trumpian terror, when a group of would-be oligarchs are shredding this country to hand off pieces to the people who already own everything in this nation. And to fight back and to win, this party needs to change. We know what we need to do. We know we need to communicate everywhere, on every platform, all the time, in the places where people actually put their attention, in the language people use in their lives, about the issues that matter most to them when they're trying to fall asleep at night, cycling through anxiety. We know that we need to organize everywhere, year-round, on the ground, across race and ethnicity, in every community and every county in this country. We know we need to do these things, and you'll hear from each of us candidates. We all get it. But for me, this isn't just a promise. This is my record. This is what we've done. When I was at Move On and Trump came for the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid to shred healthcare, I worked with unions, with grassroots leaders, with disability rights activists, with elected Democrats to organize 23,000 protests at Republican offices, at town halls across the country, to make the face of that fight the people who stood to lose the most, the people whose lives needed to be lifted up. And we dominated the news, we dominated online conversations, and Republicans backed down. I was leading the protest outside the Capitol when John McCain put his thumb down, and then that fight for the idea that healthcare is a human right, not a privilege, that dominated the 2018 election, and we swept the House and we changed this country. I went home to Wisconsin, a state where maps had been rigged, unions smashed, where votes had been suppressed, targeting Black and Latino voters and young voters. And we built and we organized a mighty state party that scaled from dozens to hundreds of people with 80 staff on the ground right now. We communicated and we invested everywhere. We raised the funds and spent them with folks who understood the communities that make up our party because they are part of those communities, unbound by the consultant class, unbound by what's happened before, fighting in the way that wins. And it worked. We added votes in Wisconsin 2024 in small towns, rural counties, in suburbs, and in Milwaukee, we had the highest turnout of any big city in this country. 89% of registered voters. That's how we flipped those 14 legislative seats and sent Tammy Baldwin back to the United States Senate. Now look, we know that in elections, voters don't just vote based on facts and figures. If they did, Democrats would win every election. They vote based on how a candidate makes them feel. And in this moment, you are the voters. And I want you to ask yourself how each of us makes you feel. I want you to listen to your gut, to ask yourself who makes you want to get up and fight, to ask yourself who inspires in you, not to pressure you, but to ignite in you the energy that this party needs. Ask yourself, in a moment when our party has shrunk, when people have left this party, who is going to inspire people across this nation to believe that the Democratic Party actually fights for something, is ready to fight for them? Ask yourself, when you look inside yourself, who calls on you to bring your best self forward? Who asks you to live in your values and live out those values? Ask yourself, who can work with you to build the party that this country needs? The world needs the Democratic Party to get up off the mat. But the world doesn't get to vote. You do. So I'm asking for your vote because I believe in you. I believe in your power. You have a superpower in this moment, and I believe in us. I believe that when we unite, when we fight, Democrats, let's rise up and let us win. Thank you so much, Democratic National Committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the nominating and second speeches for Ben Wikler. Next, we will hear nominating statements for Ken Martin. I ask that Ken Martin and his speakers join us. The 10-minute window will begin once your first speaker begins.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Good morning, Democrats. My name is Sandra Lee Williams, and I'm a proud member of and Deputy Political Director for the Retail Wholesale Department Store Union, better known as the RWDSU. I am also the President of the Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council. I just want to be clear so nobody makes a mistake. This is RWDSU red, not MAGA red, okay? But more importantly, I am a staunch, vocal supporter of our friend Ken Martin. Ken is not just our friend, but he is a friend to all labor. And here's what I always say. When people show up for us, we must show up for them. And Ken has always shown up for us. He supported us in South Carolina. He supported us in Georgia and all across the South. A few weeks ago, Ken showed up and stood alongside us to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he was right there in the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church. He marched with us, he spoke at the rally after the march, and he stood in solidarity, and that meant a lot to my community, and it means a lot to me. So just let me say, we should wear the values of working people on our sleeves here at the Democratic Party. And we need those values to be woven into the fabric of our parties. They may not be in this room, but we are all workers, and we need to stand up for working people in this country. And Ken understands that. He does understand my community. So I am here to enthusiastically nominate and support my friend Ken Martin for the chair of the DNC. Thank you.
Buenos dias, Democrats. Good morning. My name is Hilda Solis, and I serve as Chair Pro Tem of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors in the great state of California. Today, I am proud to stand before you to nominate Ken Martin to be our next DNC chair. And I'm honored to support Ken, who has been a true champion for working class people. As former U.S. Secretary of Labor under President Obama, I know firsthand what it takes to stand with workers across this nation. And Ken has proven himself as a leader who has spent his career fighting to uplift all of those needs. He comes from a working class background, and his deep understanding of those challenges that everyday Americans face is reflected in the work that he does. Ken has walked the picket lines in snow, in rain, in scorching heat, standing side by side, workers demanding fair wages and better working conditions. He has been a fierce advocate in the battle against right-to-work laws and has played a central role in building Minnesota into one of the strongest union states in the country. Ken knows that the future of our party depends on our ability to unite and to energize a broad coalition of working families, a coalition that spans across this country, including Latinos, African Americans, AAPI, LGBTQ communities, and everybody there. A coalition that includes people of all ages and spans red states, blue states, and purple states. Ken is someone who can build these bridges because he has done it in his own home state, bringing together diverse communities to fight for our shared goals. He will fight for those policies that will strengthen those communities, putting them first in our party's priorities and ensuring that every voice is heard. Ken isn't just a strategist. He's an advocate, he's a leader, and he has proven time and time again he can win tough battles. Under his leadership, our Democratic Party will be on the path to victory once again. Si se puede, and thank you very much.
Bonjour, everybody. My name is Peggy Flanagan. I'm the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Minnesota, and I am here to support Ken Martin. Y'all, I have known Ken my entire political life, and let me tell you, he works hard. He is incredibly dedicated to building this party, and because he did that in Minnesota, we won paid family and medical leave, child tax credit that leads the nation. We supported and protected access to abortion and reproductive rights, and let me tell you that this is the kind of work that we will see all across the country with Ken Martin as our party chair. His personal commitment is as strong as his political commitment. He gave me my first job in politics. He was my first campaign manager in 2004, and he sat by my mother's bedside as she lay dying and held her hand. He is a good man, and he absolutely will be the best for our party. So please join me in welcoming my friend, our next DNC party chair, Ken Martin.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, look, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I've just got a few minutes left, and I got a long speech, so thank you, Peggy, my great friend. Thank you to Supervisor Solis, and of course to my wonderful friend from Labor, Sandra Lee Williams, for her support. I want to take a moment to thank my friend, my brother, our fantastic chairman, Jamie Harrison, for his wonderful work. Look, to my fellow Democrats, we got punched in the mouth in November. There's no two ways about it. I'm running for DNC chair because it's time to get off the mat, to dust ourselves off and to get back in this fight. A lot of people in this country right now are going to need us to walk and chew gum at the same time, meaning we're going to have to fight the extremes of Donald Trump while we make a sharp case to families in both red states and blue states about why they should trust us with their votes. The thing is this, when the Trump agenda fails Americans, which it most certainly will and already has, we have to be there with a legitimate alternative to this chaos. You know, while Donald Trump was being sworn in, Sandra and I marched with labor leaders outside of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the home of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As we marched, in the streets of Atlanta, we sang the song, the old Union song, "Which Side Are You On?" For a pro-labor progressive like me, who is a guy who has carried a union card and organized for the labor movement throughout his life, that cut straight to my core. For the past few nights and for these brief moments of stillness that we get these days, I keep thinking about that song. As we move through the next year, Democrats need to ask ourselves each day, whose side are we on? Which side are we on? Are we on the side of the robber baron, the ultra-wealthy billionaire, the oil and gas polluter, the union buster, or are we on the side of the American working family, the small business owner, the farmer, the immigrant, and the students? Let me tell you, I know which side I'm on. I know which side you're on. Let me tell you, folks, look, Black History Month started today. So are we on the side of this grotesque brand of politics that bans us from observing this month, stops us from celebrating the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and expressly aims to turn back the clock to a pre-civil rights era? Or are we on the side of a fiercely and compassionately defending the rights of freedoms and dreams of the American people? I'll tell you which side I'm on. I know which side you're on. Look, I'm just going to end with this because I got 40 seconds left. You've heard a lot. If you vote for me as DNC chair, you're going to be getting a father, a husband, and the first son of a single mom who had me when she was 15 years old, who was raising 4 kids by the time she was 20. We were in and out of shelters. We knew what poverty felt like. We saw what she sacrificed to make sure we could have a warm dinner most nights. Because my mom gave a damn about me, and because my community gave a damn about my family, it meant we had a chance. I ended up being the first in my family to go to college and get a degree. I got involved in politics because I believe that government should give a damn too. For me and for all of us, the Democratic was our party. I trust that it still is. With that, I hope to have earned your vote, just as we once again rightly earn the votes of millions of families who are counting on us. Thank you so much. Let's go! Let's win! Let's fight!
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the nominating and second speeches for Ken Martin. Now we'll move on to Marianne Williamson. I ask that Marianne Williamson and her speakers join us. The 10-minute window will begin once your first speaker begins.
Thank you, Chairman Harrison. My fellow Democrats, before you go, stay for a minute, please. My name is Mark Van Landewitz. I was an advisor for President Barack Obama, former vice chair of the California Democratic Party Progressive Caucus, and I'm here to tell you why I support Marianne Williamson. Marianne Williamson is the type of visionary thinker that the DNC needs right now. This era of Trump is going to be the most challenging that we've ever faced as Democrats. And we need to make it clear to every American that Democrats want to give you health care, want to raise your wages, want to make sure that the food that you eat, the water that you drink, and the air that you breathe is safe and healthy. We talk a lot about elections, as we should, but we also need to talk about what we do with power when we have it. When Democrats make permanent material improvements to people's lives, that's when Democrats win and win and win. So I'm asking all of you to go big, to be audacious. This is part of our tradition, from the New Deal to Medicare, to Social Security, to the Affordable Care Act. And we need big personalities to push this new era for Democrats, personalities like Marianne Williamson, people from outside politics. The fact that Marianne Williamson is a mega best-selling author is good. The fact that Marianne Williamson is Oprah Winfrey's personal advisor is good. The fact that Marianne Williamson has created social and cultural movements is good, because that's what Democrats need to do now. Be a cultural and social movement. So be big, go audacious. Marianne had the audacity to run for president twice, which means she has talked to Americans from across the country. She's heard them, and we need to hear them now. She brings a perspective that includes everybody, and it is my honor, it is my pleasure to introduce to you best-selling author, activist, entrepreneur, political and spiritual thinker, the one and only Marianne Williamson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. In 1776, some very brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. I say that they were brave because if the British had won the war, all of them would have been hanged as traitors. With that signing, they infused into the founding of a nation principles that had never been there before, principles of possibility, the very idea that anyone, no matter who they were, had the God-given right to thrive. The idea that God gave inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to every human being. and that governments were instituted to secure those rights. That signing opened up a window of possibility after which the world would never be the same. But that's also where things got gnarly, because 41 of those signers were slave owners. That dichotomy was thus baked into the cake. That's the DNA of the American story, the big both and. With that signing, what we see is that from the very beginning, we have always, throughout our history and reiterated in every generation, including ours, been a reflection of the best that humanity is capable of and the worst that humanity is capable of. That struggle has been reiterated every generation. And yet, over time, the generations whose hearts were ablaze with possibility for justice and righteousness and goodness prevailed. The abolitionists prevailed. The women's suffragists prevailed. The early labor organizers prevailed. The desegregationists, the civil rights movement prevailed. It's our turn now. It's our turn now because in our generation, those who, for their own ideological and financial purposes, have no intention of seeing these great ideals of American possibility actually made manifest, is not one particular institution. It's rather an economic paradigm. It's an economic paradigm that places short-term corporate profits before humanitarian and democratic ideals. And out of this paradigm, there has emerged a soulless, ethically bankrupt, perverse strain of capitalism that has become the governing principle of the United States of America. At this point, it is up to us to recognize that what that has done has created too many Americans who are desperate, too many Americans who suffer. When you have 70% of Americans who are economically in stress, when you have 40% of Americans who say that they regularly skip meals, when you have people selling their blood plasma, when you have people eating food that is toxic and breathing air that is toxic, and the ground itself desecrated, even the most rudimentary knowledge of history would tell you that when you have large groups of desperate people, that becomes a petri dish out of which emerges all manner of societal and personal dysfunction. If it hadn't been Donald Trump, it would have been somebody. Because that dysfunction often leads to ideological capture by genuinely psychotic forces and political strongmen. And that is why we are here today. We do not have time for the Democratic Party to fail. I'd like to point out, Lincoln could not have done what he did had he not been who he was. And Roosevelt could not have done what he did had he not been who he was. We need to do more than look at the problems in America's past. We have to identify with the problem solvers in America's past. It's not just what we need to do at this point, it's who we need to be. And I'd like to point out also that in the history of social justice movements in the United States, and be very clear, the Democratic Party should not be a billionaire-funded corrupt organization. It should be a social justice movement. And in all the history of the great social justice movements of the United States, please know how many of them came from religious and spiritual sources. Among white abolitionists, they emerged from the early evangelical churches in New Hampshire. Many of the women who were the leaders of the suffragist movement were religious Quakers, and Dr. King was a Baptist preacher. And so today we must ask for a purity of heart, and for courage, and for changes in our own being, which will enable us to be the people we need to be in order to do the things we need to do now. From this point forward, there will not only be a new chapter in the Democratic Party, there must be an intention, an alignment here today, that this will be a new chapter in the American story. And we can begin today by purifying our own hearts of any childishness, of any exclusivity, of any way that we ourselves know that we are not standing up and rising up to the task at hand. I'd like to finish by reading to you from the 1862 speech, Abraham Lincoln to Congress. The dogma of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. In my interest, as all of you have, to do what I can to contribute to this moment, given the political realities, I give my farewell to this race. I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you who have allowed me to be here, who have listened to me, who've received my words, have understood why I am here. And with that, I, in contribution to what I feel is our best chance to intervene, our best chance to cut the cord with the billionaire-funded corruption that will otherwise obstruct and limit our possibilities, I heartily endorse Ken Martin and hope you will vote for him. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the nominating and seconding speeches for Marianne Williamson. We will now move to nominating statements for Jason Paul. I ask that Jason Paul and his speakers join us. The 10-minute window will begin once your first speaker begins.
Oh, as soon as I start. All right. Thank you, everyone. It's just me today. I am Jason Paul, candidate for chair. I want to start off with the fact that I begin with gratitude. 43 of you signed my petition so that I could be on the ballot and speak in this race. I'm grateful to all of them. I'm grateful to all of the people who've been listening at the forums, at all of the things. I also want to thank the people who I've been in political fights with my entire life, who stood with me in this race. I'm never going to forget it. So in this campaign, I've talked a lot about principles and plans. I think we need to be human and empathetic. I think we need a Moneyball mindset. I think that we need to be culturally attuned. I think we need to be locally grounded. And I think we need to be proud of our party. But that's not really what got me famous in this race. What got me famous in this race was being critical. I told Politico and the political press what I thought about them, and I told the Sunrise kids that when people agree with you, you shouldn't yell at them. But being critical of them was easy because I don't love them, but I love this party, and so why this part is extra hard. So I've been in this fight for 15 years before Donald Trump headed down the escalator. I was a state rep candidate who ran on a gun violence prevention message. And so that's what I did before Donald Trump came down the escalator. But when he came down that escalator, everything changed. So first, the easy part. Every single person in this room is a better human being than Donald Trump. It's not even close. Now for the hard part. He is better in politics than any of us. He trades on dark forces that have always been in American politics, but he's also taking advantage of the new ways in which American politics has become a game show, a reality show, and sort of entertainment and fun. And I think it's despicable, but that is how this has happened, and that is how we've lost. The Trump rule, which I think is really important, is that he will ally with anyone who likes Donald Trump. If you like Donald Trump, it doesn't matter if you beat up a bunch of cops in the Capitol. It doesn't matter if you have a criminal record. It doesn't matter if you do anything. The #1 primary purpose of Donald Trump is, what do you think of Donald Trump? And I'm going to tell you, I don't like you, Donald Trump. But he's changed everything. This is a fight for our republic, and I've known it from the beginning. That's why I was one of the first people in America to protest at Donald Trump's first rally in New Hampshire. My friend, who's a big mentor to me and encouraged me to get in this race, we did it together. So I've been fighting against Trump this entire time. How did Trump change everything? He threw out the Bushes, he threw out Romney-Ryan, he threw out their legacy of unpopular policies, and while we all know that's still the Republican Party and will always be the Republican Party, they have convinced the entire public that that's not, because rhetorically he threw them out. It was an incredible move of genius. Evil genius, but genius. He has changed everything, and unfortunately, to a large degree, we have changed very little. We're running the same failed strategy over and over again without realizing that the battle has shifted under our feet. And I want to talk about one of the things I've talked about a lot in this campaign, but is the way that we do fundraising. The way that we do fundraising as this party, with a constant, unceasing barrage of texts and emails, is just inhuman. It remains inhuman, and it becomes impossible to us to say anything else because we're too busy asking for money. And the truth is, there are a small number of companies that are mostly responsible for this, and we need to kick them off that glue, and we need to make it so that we are able to actually talk and speak to each other again. It's through being better about fundraising that we can begin being the communitarian and human people that we need to be, because people talking to people is the only way to overcome Trumpian noise. We also need someone who wants to run the ecosystem and not just the DNC. I understand how important the DNC is an institution, but our party is much bigger than the DNC, and if you're not willing to say that you want to lead all of it, then you're not well positioned to bring the change that we need. And I do think, unfortunately, too much of the time in this DNC race has been about DNC mechanics. DNC mechanics are important, you all are important, but thinking about how we're going to go out and engage in this fight, I think is a bit more important, and we've missed this. We need the right kind of leader, is someone who's run large, diverse organizations with lots of stakeholders. Winning is the job. Allowing anyone or anything to get in the way is a failure to do the job. As a great Packer coach, Vince Lombardi, said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. And one other way to understand how we got into this quagmire is that we are now in a totally attention-based political economy. If you paid a lot of attention to Trump 1, you know he's a bad guy. Every one of us in this room paid a lot of attention to Trump 1, and because we paid attention, we know he's terrible. But too many other Americans did not pay attention to the Trump years except for when it was in it for them. And what it was in it for them was, because of Barack Obama and the great policies he's had, that we were able to continue under Donald Trump, because he had to pass our budgets but for the tax cuts. We were able to continue the progress. People felt that progress. It was our progress, and he stole it, and we should never have let him steal it. But because he stole it in a world in which then COVID happened, and people wanted to go back to a pre-COVID mindset, not a post-COVID mindset, those 3 years where Donald Trump didn't have COVID seemed pretty good if you didn't pay attention. And in the last election, those are the people that we ended up losing to a large degree. Also the case in our last election, we ended up having, I wrote the book about trench warfare politics, and I talked about how things are really divided. Well, Donald Trump very cleverly went after 4 key groups that made it possible for him to get just that sliver over the line, so we face this calamity. And this is amazing. Donald Trump, and I know it's going to be hard to hear for this in the room, Donald Trump ran this presidential election as a pro-choice candidate. It was an unbelievable, unceasing lie, but that is how he ran. He told everyone that, yes, we got rid of Roe versus Wade, that we're happy about that, we're returning it to the states, but, oh, by the way, all these referendums mean that when we return to the states, that means that your state is going to vote to legalize abortion, so you don't need to worry about abortion. And he was able to do that totally uncontested. He went after crypto bros, totally uncontested. He went after Robert Kennedy's vaccine deniers, totally uncontested. He went after the libertarians, totally uncontested. The things that he had to do for them were a situation whereby, because he did those things for them, unchallenged by us, he promised the crypto bros endless crypto. Crypto means betting against America. Anyone who doesn't understand that cryptocurrency means that the dollar doesn't matter doesn't understand. Donald Trump bet against America. We didn't call him on it. Donald Trump said we're going to allow disease through vaccines to run rampant through our country through Kennedy. We didn't challenge him on it. Donald Trump, at the Libertarian Party convention, Donald Trump promised to pardon a drug dealer, and the only reason that it was cool is because he used computers to deal drugs. But where I come from, if you're dealing drugs, it doesn't matter whether it's a laptop or a street corner. But we did not challenge him on these things that he went after, and because we didn't challenge him on this, we had serious problems. They made us pay for Liz Cheney. We used Liz Cheney to try and bring in Republicans, and they basically told us that we were the party of the Iraq War, and that should never have happened. We're not the party of the Iraq War. I don't want anyone to think we are. But when we did this, so my time is very short. I want to say that logistically, 3 things I saw in my time as an organizer. In 2018, I was on college campuses. We had 3 organizers in a brief period of time. We are bad at college campuses. In 2020, our Senate candidates used a windowless room strategy to raise money. That doesn't work. And I was a paid canvasser organizer in 2022. That doesn't work anymore. These are the things we need. I want to thank you all. Everyone's been part of this race, has been amazing. All our voices need to be heard in the next DNC. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the nominating and seconding speeches for Jason Paul. Next, we will hear nominating statements for Dr. Quintessa Hathaway. I ask Dr. Hathaway and her speakers that they join us, and the 10-minute window will begin once your first speaker begins.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome today. All that I am and will ever be is because of the life and legacy of my late mother, Miss Joanne Hathaway, my late father, Mr. Andrew Jackson Pride, my grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Miller and Willie Mae Hathaway,
my paternal grandparents, Mr. General Jackson Pride, Ms. Laura V. Beatty Pride, and for the ancestors for who this day is truly dedicated to, that have allowed all of us to assemble here together, both red, yellow, black, and white, all precious in the divine sight. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that this is African American History Month, and we are so grateful to the late ancestor, Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson, who is considered the father of African American history, for laying the foundation for which all of us have been laid upon. I'd like to acknowledge my family, my church family in Nashville, Tennessee, Jackson Street Church of Christ, my tribe, both of my alma maters, the Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, Tennessee State University, and all that I am and will ever be is because they poured into me, and I am eternally grateful. The pulse and power of the Democratic Party is held in the African American vote. I have coined the term the Second Civil Rights Movement. This movement resembles the Southern movement of the 1950s and 1960s, and a fusion of allocation and power and the bedrock of social activism of its time. The first civil rights movement has its geographical roots in cities like Greenville, South Carolina, Montgomery, Alabama, Selma, Alabama, Atlanta, Macon, Jackson, Mississippi, Oxford, Mississippi, Memphis, and Nashville, Tennessee, and even a place that I came through for almost 13 years, Little Rock, Arkansas, and thank you to the Little Rock Nine. Disenfranchisement has ripped across the southern region of the United States of America. There's cracking and packing that has been happening not only in metropolitan Nashville, Davidson County, but also in Pulaski County, where Little Rock is the county seat. In both of those locations, they were divided into 3 separate congressional districts, and there are lawsuits that are pending right now in both of those regions. We cannot forget that racial and partisan gerrymandering is what is causing us to be at a loss when it comes to us having the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. The Republicans are stealing seats. They are suppressing the vote throughout the United States, but I'm crazy enough to believe the concentration is mostly being felt throughout the southern United States of America. There's ongoing conversation about going into rural America to go get out the vote. I want to encourage all to make sure that you journey down to the poverty-stricken Mississippi Delta in the South. Go to Greenville and Leland, Mississippi. Go to Blytheville, Arkansas, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Go tell the people of how the South will rise anew. Go tell Governor Lee to give Tennessee State University its $2.1 billion. Go tell all the governors that HBCUs are due their financial monies. Go tell the people that a movement for reparations is already here and we want our just due. Go tell the people of the Earth Circuit that you cannot file lawsuits under Section 2 of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, that racial discrimination in voting practices can no longer be addressed. Go tell the people of Pulaski County and other areas throughout this country about the cracking and packing and dilution of their votes. Go tell the people in the state of Mississippi that a felon can no longer have suffrage rights for the rest of their life. Go tell the people in the state of Louisiana that now they have a black opportunity district. Go tell the people in Alabama that they have a new black congressional opportunity district. In the words of Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, my people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We are sick and tired of being the last one hired and the first one fired. We are sick and tired of the word white, working class being a code word for whiteness. We are tired, and this is our time for us to rise up. One people, one nation, under the divine, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm asking for your vote to be the next DNC chair. I hope my words were well received. And even though I know that there's a coalescence right now around the Ben, Ken, and O'Malley show, in similar words to the great freedom fighter, Mr. Fred Hampton, you may not vote for a revolutionary, but you cannot stop the revolution.
Thank you, Dr. Hathaway. That concludes the nominating speeches for Dr. Quintessa Hathaway. Now we will move on to Nate Snider. I ask that Nate Snider join us. The 10-minute window will begin once the first speaker begins.
Good morning, Democrats. We can do better than that. Good morning, Democrats. All right. It is both an honor and a responsibility to stand before you today at this critical moment in our nation's history. We in this room today are not just the members of the Democratic Party. We are the primary defenders of our democracy, guardians of justice, and champions of a future where every American can live free from fear and oppression. Our mission is clear: to ensure that the Democratic National Committee is prepared to meet the defining challenge of our time, protecting the security of our nation and the integrity of our democracy. I stand before you today not just as a candidate for the DNC chair, but as someone who has spent my entire career fighting for the security and well-being of the American people. I have spent time in the federal government, on the front lines with unions, and in the battleground states with campaigns. I am a former official at the Department of Homeland Security, where I work to keep the country safe from threats both foreign and domestic. I began my career as an organizer with SEIU, fighting for the rights of working families. And I have spent 4 presidential cycles on the front lines of campaigns and helping build the infrastructure we need to win. These experiences have shaped my vision of the Democratic Party, a party that is strong, strategic, and unrelenting in its dedication to the American people. When we think of national security, we often think of external threats, foreign adversaries, cyber attacks, international terrorism. These threats are real and demand our vigilance. But today, I want to focus our attention on a different threat. A threat that comes not from foreign enemies, but comes from within. It is the threat posed by Donald Trump and the Republican Party, who are actively dismantling our democratic institutions, undermining the rule of law, and weakening our civil liberties for their own political gain. Let us Democrats be clear on this. Trumpism is not just a political ideology. It is an authoritarian movement that glorifies lawlessness, embraces conspiracy theories, and threatens the very foundation of our democracy. We have long viewed the greatest threat of our country as a threat from abroad. I stand before you today as a national security expert to tell you that our greatest threat is now from within. This is reality, and we have witnessed that firsthand. We saw it on January 6, 2021, when a violent mob incited by Donald Trump attacked the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to overturn a free and fair election. That attack was not just on a building, it was an attack on our Constitution, on our system of government, and on the fundamental idea that the American people, not an aspiring dictator, decides who leads this country. And now, we witness the release of those violent extremists, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, who are back in our communities with a determination for revenge. We see it in the state legislators across the country, where Republican lawmakers are enacting extreme voter suppression laws designed to disenfranchise voters, diverse in ethnicity, background, and age. Their goal is simple. If they can't win fair and square, they will cheat. They will rig the system. They will erode our faith in our elections because they know when democracy works, they lose. We see it in Trump's recklessness and his approach to national security. He has spread violent mis and disinformation. We see it in the weaponization of anti-DEIA rhetoric. We see it in his plans to normalize hate and fear. And now, he is promising even more destruction. He has vowed to weaponize the Justice Department against his political opponents. He has pledged to dismantle the checks and balances that prevent authoritarian rule. He has openly embraced the rhetoric of dictators, calling for a return to government where he alone holds power. This is not democracy. This is a roadmap to autocracy, and the Republican Party is drawing that map. So what do? How do we, Democrats and the DNC, confront this threat and protect the future of our country? First, we must expose the Republican extremism for what it is, a danger to national security. The DNC must launch an aggressive campaign to educate the American people about the threats posed by Donald Trump and his allies. We must be clear that this is not just a battle of left versus right. This is a battle between democracy and totalitarianism, between freedom and oppression, between truth and lies. Second, we must turn our focus to winning elections. The reality is, if we do not win elections, we cannot govern. We need to build a winning coalition, expand our outreach, and ensure that every Democrat understands the stakes. We must invest in cutting-edge campaign strategies, leverage new technology, and tell the story that the Democratic Party is the party championing civil liberties, and that the Democratic Party is fighting back against an all-powerful, tyrannical government governed by the GOP. But this fight is not just about the DNC. It is about all of us in this room. Every Democrat in this country has a role to play in defending our democracy. We cannot just knock doors and make phone calls. We must do that, but we must also recognize that the game is changing. We must adapt. We must invest in new organizing techniques, expand our digital presence, and use every available tool to engage voters in ways that reflect the shifting landscape of political engagement. We need our donors and allies to invest in this fight. National security is not just about military strength. It is about defending democracy here at home. That requires resources, and we cannot afford to be outspent by extremists who seek to destroy everything we stand for. And most importantly, we need every voter to show up, to vote in every election, not just for president, but for state legislatures, governors, city councils, and school boards. Because the battle for democracy is being fought at every level of government. Make no mistake, this is not going to be easy. The forces we are up against are powerful. They are ruthless, and they are willing to undermine our democracy to cling to power. But we have something stronger. We have the Democratic Party, the last best hope for protecting democracy in this country. We cannot afford to sit back and hope for the best. We must fight, we must organize, we must outwork them. Because democracy does not defend itself. It requires all of us working together to protect it. In my personal effort to protect our democracy, I jumped into this race. I am proud of the campaign that I've run, and throughout the tremendous work of my staff, my network of volunteers, and my family, we built a campaign that reflects my life's work. A life work that has been dedicated to defending this country and fighting for working families and for the Democratic Party. We built a campaign that has shifted the conversation in this election. I came into this race as a national security guy in a DNC race, a square peg in a round hole. But through all our hard work, we have shifted the conversation on how the DNC can address our own national security crisis. My colleagues in this race, Governor O'Malley, Chairman Martin, and the rest of the field, have heard my voice and understand that we need to address this crisis. It is clear that while I have coalesced meaningful support amongst the voting members in this party, there is not a clear pathway to victory for our campaign this morning. As such, I feel that it is best for the voting process and for the remaining candidates that I step aside. While I step aside, I will not step away, and I guarantee you this. I have been fighting in this fight for 25 years. I have no intention on hanging up the cleats. I ain't going nowhere. The issues I have voiced throughout this campaign are important, and if not addressed swiftly, will put our party further behind the American people, and the American people will continue to suffer as a consequence. With that said, after participating in every DNC forum and the many council caucus calls in between, it seems clear to me that there is one candidate that not only has the need and buy-in of support of the DNC, but the leadership vision to help us weather this crisis that I have so often referenced. I'm proud to support my friend Ken Martin and ask anyone through message to consider voting for our leader in our party.
Thank you.
Our movement starts now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the nominating speeches for Nate Snider. Last, we will hear from Fez Shakir. I ask that Fez join us. The 10-minute window will begin once he begins.
Fellow voting members of the DNC, who's ready to wrap this up and get on with business? All right, I'm going to give you a few minutes and then we'll vote, all right? All right. When I was growing up, my dad, who immigrated to this country from Pakistan with great pride, used to make me watch the evening news. And he would comment occasionally and say, "Faz, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely." Doesn't that feel like the moment we're in right now? We are living in a social experiment, sadly, of what happens when a society has massive wealth and income inequality. What happens to that society? Well, I'll tell you. You develop a ruling class that feels as if it has some noble soul, an infinite wisdom that far exceeds the capacities of us regular people. They feel as if free speech and media are best when they glorify them. Dissent is to be mocked and punished. Special favor and privilege is to be given to a ruling class. Government is supposed to work at their whims, not for the greatest good, for the greatest number. What I worry about, my friends, is that right now we are seeing, because of the greed of a ruling class, a decaying of the American way of life. The selfishness, the exploitation are what we are trying to fight against. In my view, too often, the deep power imbalance in society is robbing working class people of voice, both in our politics and in our economy, making so many people feel angry, stuck, and oppressed. The Democratic brand, in my view, is hurting because when we are living amidst the corrupting influence of the selfish greed that is imposed upon us, there is a palpable desperation and hunger from a working class people who says, do you see us? Do you know that we exist? Will you do something bold to address it? My friends, quite frankly, we in the Democratic Party are held to a much higher standard than our Republicans. Due to our long and proud lineage of fighting for working class people, we are the party associated with being there for the common person. And that reputation right now is in need of great rehabilitation. But the way back for us is clear. A democratic, grassroots-oriented DNC that opens its doors and brings people together. We have to reject identity politics that dissipates our power and pits us against one another unnecessarily. We must make membership within the Democratic Party mean more than an online contribution. We don't need to create an exclusive club. We need to open our doors and create an ever-expanding people-powered movement. In my view, we can have a glorious rise when we are able to demonstrably show that the Democratic Party operates in service of others beyond ourselves. I jumped into this race late because I felt that while we're now talking about building a working class party, we are not sufficiently matching that rhetoric with the ambitious ideas that would grab people's heads and get their attention. I would humbly suggest that of the DNC chair candidates, I am your best choice for the following reason. If this body chooses to send a message that the Democratic Party is boldly transforming its ways and rejecting status quo-ism, then selecting me would do that. I believe we could send the message to huge numbers of people that we are prepared to make big changes for the better. Why? Because together we would make big changes for the better. When we say a democratic grassroots DNC in service of others beyond ourselves, what do we mean? I imagine us organizing with striking workers, helping unions grow their movement, involving us in the fight against corporate monopolists who rig this economy to crush entrepreneurial spirit and economic liberty. I imagine a grassroots DNC that is engaging people beyond politics in the arenas of entertainment, sports, culture, building civic organization for the left. I imagine a grassroots DNC that, in order to become a strong media outlet, builds up its own social media channels using video journalism, featuring the voices of workers in both red and blue states. We will reach tens of millions of people directly so that we don't have to rely on a broken media infrastructure to get our message out. We need a grassroots DNC that is grassroots funded. I've made this kind of change happen before, and I'll do it again. This is what we did on the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign. This is what we did when I ran the ACLU during the first Trump years. And this is what I'm doing now in building a media organization called More Perfect Union. The opportunity is there for the DNC if you choose it. When we boost our grassroots donation programs, the state parties are going to see both more funding and more engagement that will help us win more elections. I want to add that I strongly believe in being a good steward of money. While at the ACLU in the Bernie campaign, we raised hundreds of millions of dollars. I jumped into this race and I did not start a PAC. I could not in good conscience take money from working class people to throw trinkets and happy hours. I don't want to get corrupted by the influence of money before I walk in the door. I don't want it setting strategy for us. We're going to raise tons of grassroots money when I'm chair, I promise you that. If we are clear on strategic and operate with integrity, we are going to come out of this Trump era much stronger. I do not believe the majority of people in this country want to witness a president who puts their government up for sale, who cedes power to unelected billionaires to be co-presidents, who thinks that the oath to uphold the Constitution is merely optional. They don't want to be there. When he attacks Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, the nation looks to us. Why? Because we are the party that created those damn programs. With pride, we have improved them. They need us in those moments. We must hold righteous anger at large multinational corporations like McDonald's, Walmart, Uber, who make their workers toil for long hours and refuse them health care and retirement benefits. They refuse our fights when we try to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. They fight us when we try to give workers paid leave and child care benefits. And then they turn around, these mega corporations, and go to the Republican Party and ask them to reduce the corporate tax rate. We know there's declining trust in institutions, but we can build it back, my friends. These super PACs and lobbying firms, they've become play toys and sandboxes for people with great wealth. We must build the institutions with conviction and clarity in this moment to say, we will build power for working people. We will be the people's champion to create a more perfect union in this country. You all have a big choice to make right now, and I know you will take it seriously. Over the past few days, I've heard many of you come up to me and say, I love what you're saying, Fez. I love everything you're arguing for. It's too bad you were a little bit too late. I would argue to you, I was just in time. Just in time. 0 votes have been cast. Time left up on the scoreboard. You are independent agents right now. Promises and pledges of the past are gone. Power is right there in front of you to vote. It's your choice to make. I would welcome your vote together. We will transform the Democratic Party again into the working class party of America. Thank you all.
Thank you. That concludes the nominating and seconding speeches for our candidates for national chair. Let's thank all of our candidates for running and all that they did to throw themselves into this race. We will now move to a vote. And members, please return to your seats now in order to receive a ballot. Candidate staff, please leave the members-only floor. And former DNC Chair Donna Brazile is on the floor and is asking for a moment of privilege. Do we have a microphone? Where's the mic?
Mr. Chair, my name is Donna Brazile, and I am a proud member, long-standing member, at-large member of the Democratic National Committee. Mr. Chair, I rise because earlier when we came into this room, you called upon us, Mr. Chair, to vote our conscience. You called upon us to have an open and free and fair election. And Mr. Chair, you called upon us as Democrats to come together to hear from our candidates. Mr. Chair, as we prepare to vote, I would like you to reiterate what you have called upon us to do today as Democrats, as Americans. to be able to cast our ballots free and fair without retaliation. That means that no matter who you support or not support, no matter who you vote for and stand up for, we're going to stand as Democrats and Americans and believe in free elections. We're not Republicans. We don't suppress. We don't purge you. We don't discourage you because you may not vote for who you, but we are Democrats. We love America. We support the right to vote. Mr. Chair, I ask in my humble opinion, as a former national chairwoman, as a former national vice chair for civic engagement and border protection, but perhaps the most important title I have ever had in this party is that of a leader, a staff member, an intern, a volunteer, and a grassroots activist. From the days of Jesse Jackson to the days just past Biden and Harris, I'm proud of this party, and so, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of those of us who stand for civil rights and equal justice in the law, would you reiterate what you said so everybody know you have a place at the table, Democrats, no matter how you vote, and nobody's going to kick you or hit you or push you out or retaliate because of how you vote today. God bless you all. God bless America.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, back home, the pastor would say, you already preached a sermon. All the church needs to say now is amen. So candidate staff, again, please leave the members only floor. A candidate must receive a majority of votes cast in person or by proxy in order to win office. Should no candidate secure a majority of the votes cast, we will proceed to a subsequent ballot with the lowest vote getter removed. Again, if no one receives a majority, we will move to a second ballot with the lowest vote getter removed. There is no specified gender requirement for this office, and this office does not affect the overall gender balance of the offices. The staff will now begin distributing ballots. Please raise your hand to receive a ballot. If you need a proxy ballot, please raise both hands. So staff, we have some hands up. Ballots are being distributed. Keep your hands up until you receive a ballot.
Yeah, we still have some more hands over on this side of the room to the staff. I see some right here in the middle and a few over here on the other side. And one right here in the front. Madam Chair from Florida, Nikki Freed. Do we have some staff over here on this side of the room? Yes, I see someone. Okay. Seems that we have, I don't see any hands up. Thank you everyone for your, we still have a few over here. On this side, not yet. Thank you everyone for your cooperation. Pursuant to the rules of procedure, you have 2 minutes to cast your vote for a candidate for national chair. Please fill out your ballot now and raise it to be collected by DNC staff. Get my ballot.
Yeah, Clay asked about that. I said, better not to do that. Better not to do that.
You don't think so?
I wouldn't do it. One, it's not likely to be margin, and I wouldn't have it recorded unless it's important to you to show where you, because this will be the only race you get a ballot.
I want to guess.
Okay.
Huh? If you, yeah, you should be. There two?
Yeah, but don't cast for one.
Oh, well, there's the extra. Oh, okay. No, I haven't.
It has been 2 minutes, but it has been 2 minutes to vote. Now they've got.
They're just still collecting. Yeah. We still have some collection right here in the middle of the room. Hey, staff, we have some collection right over here on this side. Members, we have 30 more seconds to wrap up. Please, please, staff, come pick up the ballots. We still have some members with their hands up. We want to make sure we get all of the ballots. Do we have any members with outstanding ballots that need to be collected? If so, please raise your hand. I don't see any. Any more ballots that need to be collected? Okay. Members, the 2 minutes provided for voting has now expired. Staff, please return all ballots to the count room. No further ballots will be accepted. Where's the page for the land acknowledgement and all this? The land acknowledgement. Josh, did we put it?
Here's the land acknowledgement.
And are we doing?
This was just to say, you're going to do this after. So you're going to do this first, then Van Hollen, then the votes.
Okay, while the votes are being tabulated, I want you all to please welcome Jackson Brossi to provide our land acknowledgement. Jackson's a member of the Navajo Nation who served as the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Native American Affairs at the U.S. Small Business Administration. In this role, Mr. Brossi served as a senior executive providing executive oversight, management, leadership, and championship of Native American entrepreneurship. Mr. Brossi also served on the board of Prosperity Now, Change Labs, and the Federal Reserve Bank Center for the Indian Country Development Leadership Council.
Kon betsiish kliji bekeya na kosten will yegi a ba ahye danidzin. Welcome. The Democratic National Committee wishes to acknowledge that we gather together to state our values on lands that have been stewarded through many centuries by the ancestors and the descendants of tribal nations who have been here since time immemorial. We honor the communities native to this continent and recognize that our country was built on indigenous lands and home. We pay our respects to the millions of indigenous peoples who lived throughout this history, who have protected our lands, waters, and animals. The United States Capitol is surrounded by just over a dozen tribal nations that thrive along the Anacostia and Potomac Rivers in the Chesapeake Bay area and in the states of Maryland and Virginia and Delaware. The DNC winter meeting is gathering on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway and neighbors the ancestral lands of the Nacotchink or the Nacostan people for whom the Anacostia River is named, and the Pamunkey peoples. We also acknowledge the following. Native citizens and tribal governments have inherent rights and a political relationship with the U.S. government that does not derive from race or ethnicity. Tribal nations are citizens of 3 sovereign
saw the press conference at the White House. And while those emergency responders were working to recover the bodies of those we lost, President Trump was at the White House spewing baseless conspiracy theories and engaging